In the heart of the Galactic Council, 1,000 alien voices filled the great chamber. The hall floated above the capital world of Velithar, surrounded by glowing nebulae and drifting starships. It was a place where the most powerful civilizations debated, traded, and planned wars. That day, a single message changed everything. It came through the deep space relay carried on an old human frequency. The translator drones processed it for several minutes before projecting the message into the hall. A cold human voice spoke. To the Galactic Council, do not approach Sol System. This is your only warning. The words echoed in the silent hall. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the laughter began. Dozens of alien representatives started talking at once. Mocking, amused, confident. Humans? One delegate hissed. The primitive species from the backwater system? They don't even have a seat here, another laughed. They think they can warn us? The council's senior members exchanged looks of annoyance. The human home system was small, unimportant. Earth had never joined the council, never taken part in galactic politics. For most species, humanity was a myth, a small, emotional race that avoided the stars. The message repeated again, louder this time. Do not approach Sol System. This is your only warning. Then silence. The council speaker, a tall insectoid named Kalreth, waved a claw dismissively. Ignore it. Some old human satellite is probably malfunctioning. But not everyone laughed. In the shadows at the back of the chamber, Commander Zareth of the Varn Dominion stood silently, watching the holographic image of Earth spinning slowly in front of him. He was a war hero, proud, fearless, and known for crushing rebellions on 3 different worlds. When the laughter died down, he stepped forward. His voice was calm but cold. Let me go, he said. Let me remind these humans of their place. If they wish to threaten the council, they will learn the price of arrogance. The council members looked at one another. It was an easy decision. A lesson needed to be taught. Approved, said Kalreth. You will take your fleet and make contact. Show them that defiance has consequences. Zareth bowed his head slightly. As you command. 3 days later, the stars stretched into long streaks as Zareth's warfleet jumped through hyperspace. 40 ships, sleek, sharp, and built for destruction, sped toward the Sol System. Inside his flagship, Varn's Wrath, Zareth stood on the command deck, hands behind his back, staring into the blue storm of hyperspace. Commander, said his first officer, intelligence reports show no active human defense network. Their last recorded space navy was over a century ago. Zareth smiled. Then this will be quick. But as they exited hyperspace near the edge of the system, the first sign of unease appeared. Commander, the sensor officer reported, I'm detecting something. Large mass shadows. But there's nothing on visual. Could be asteroids, Zareth said. Ignore them. Continue forward. The fleet moved closer to the 3rd planet, Earth, but the silence of space felt heavy, unnatural. There were no transmissions, no satellites, no signs of life. Commander, the officer said again, his voice trembling slightly. The shadows are moving. Zareth turned sharply. Explain. I don't know, sir. It's like, something is there but our systems can't define it. Zareth frowned. Activate full scan. I want every reading possible. A wave of energy pulsed through the fleet as their scanners swept the void. For a second, everything looked normal. Then, all at once, several ships lost connection. Communication failure on ships Delta 4 through Delta 7, someone shouted. Re-establish the link. Static filled the air. Then came a whisper, a human voice, distorted, echoing across every comm channel. You were warned. Zareth's crew froze. Even hardened soldiers felt a chill crawl up their spines. Zareth growled, trace that signal. But before anyone could respond, the lights flickered. The deck trembled slightly. A faint alarm began to beep. Commander, the navigation officer whispered, there's something right in front of us, massive but it's cloaked. I can't get a reading. The viewing window showed only stars, calm, beautiful, endless. Yet, deep within that darkness, a faint blue shimmer rippled, like light bending around a hidden surface. Raise shields, Zareth ordered. The command came too late. A flash of light tore through space. One of the Varn destroyers vanished in an instant. No explosion, no debris, just gone. The rest of the fleet pulled back in panic. Sir, Delta 4 is gone. No escape pods detected. Zareth's eyes widened. Impossible. He turned toward the void again. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. Something was out there, something so advanced it could erase ships without trace. He clenched his fists. No life signs, yet something's targeting us. A deep hum filled the silence, vibrating through the ship's hull. The crew looked around in terror. "Commander," whispered his first officer, "what is that sound?" Zaratha's eyes stayed locked on the stars. "That," he said quietly, "is the sound of a mistake." And as he spoke, another ship disappeared. The Varn Dominion fleet floated in silence. One ship was gone, erased from existence. No explosion, no wreckage, no distress signal. Just gone. Commander Zarath stood at the center of the command deck, his sharp eyes fixed on the empty space ahead. His crew worked in terrified silence, hands trembling over glowing control panels. "Status report," he said calmly, though his voice carried steel. "Still no sign of the missing ships, Commander," replied the first officer. "Scanners show nothing. It's as if they never existed." Zaratha's jaw tightened. "Everything leaves a trace. Even death." He turned toward the sensor display. Endless lines of static filled the screen. The system seemed to reject every attempt to scan deeper into the darkness. "Commander," said a young technician softly, "what if it's not a weapon? What if something out there is blocking us?" Zarath looked at him coldly. "Something? You mean the humans?" The technician hesitated, then nodded. "Humans do not have the technology to make warships disappear," Zarath said. "They're farmers, traders, and dreamers. They send warnings because they fear us." But even as he said it, a chill crept down his spine. Hours passed. The fleet drifted toward the third planet, Earth. The planet looked quiet from orbit. Clouds swirled peacefully over blue oceans. Cities glimmered faintly, but no radio signals came from the surface. It looked dead. The silence grew heavier. Even the hum of the engines felt too loud. "Commander," said the communication officer, "we are detecting something. A faint transmission, low frequency." "Play it," Zarath ordered. The sound filled the bridge, a faint whisper repeating over and over. "You were warned." The bridge fell silent. The officer checked his equipment, shaking. "It's coming from all directions, Commander, everywhere." Zaratha's eyes narrowed. "Trace it anyway." The crew worked frantically, but the signal had no origin. It was everywhere and nowhere. It seemed to come from the stars themselves. "Perhaps," said Zarath slowly, "this is human psychological warfare." But another officer shouted, "Commander, movement detected. Something's approaching from the dark side of the moon." Everyone turned toward the main screen. A cluster of metallic shadows moved against the light. They were fast, too fast. Zarath ordered, "Zoom in." The image sharpened, and the bridge fell into stunned silence. Floating above the moon were structures. Massive towers and spheres like black mirrors half buried in shadow. "They're stations?" whispered the first officer. "No," said Zarath quietly. "They're weapons." Before anyone could react, the moon itself began to shift. Panels of metal unfolded from its surface, ancient armor plating sliding into place. It wasn't a natural satellite. It was something else. Something built. The comms crackled again. This time the human voice was clear, calm, and emotionless. "This is Earth Defense Command. You have violated Sol territory. Leave now or be erased." The crew froze. Zarath laughed, a short, harsh sound. "Empty threats. Prepare to fire a warning volley. Let them see our strength." The bridge crew hesitated. "Do it," he barked. Seconds later, bright plasma beams shot toward the lunar surface. The explosions flared, but the moment the light faded, the structures remained untouched. The plasma had simply vanished. "Commander," cried an officer, "the shots didn't land. They were absorbed." Zarath opened his mouth to respond, then alarm screamed. "Unidentified energy surge. It's coming from Earth." The main screen turned white. A blinding beam of light shot past the fleet, missing them by a few kilometers, but the shockwave rocked every ship. Shields failing. Zarath grabbed the railing to steady himself. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter formation. But before the fleet could regroup, another beam fired. This one hit. A battleship disintegrated instantly, melting into silent debris. The comms filled with panicked voices. "Mayday. Engine failure. They're targeting us." "It's the humans?" Zaratha's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "All ships retreat to safe distance. Form defensive screen. Now." The fleet pulled back, engines flaring, but the invisible force followed them, like a hunter that never missed. Zarath turned to his sensor officer. What do you see? Nothing, the officer whispered. No ships, no energy trails. Just movement. Shadows where light should be. Then, out of nowhere, a colossal shape appeared in orbit. It shimmered like a ghost, a massive ship slowly decloaking. It was unlike anything Zareth had ever seen. Its hull was black as night, edges glowing with deep crimson light. The human insignia burned across its side. TSS Retribution. Zareth stared at it, speechless. They built that? The human ship opened communication. The same calm voice returned. This is your final warning. Leave Sol System immediately. Zareth's pride flared. We do not take orders from primitives. He slammed his fist against the control panel. Fire everything. The Varn fleet unleashed its full power, dozens of plasma blasts streaking toward the human ship. But none reached their target. The energy simply dissolved against an unseen barrier. Then, without a sound, the human ship fired once. A single red beam cut across the void. 3 alien ships vanished, erased from existence just like before. Zareth stumbled back. His voice dropped to a whisper. They're not defending, they're testing us. The comms filled with static again. The human voice spoke one final time. You were warned. Then the transmission ended. The remains of Zareth's fleet floated in silence. Half of his warships were gone, destroyed by weapons no one could even see. The once proud commander stood at the command bridge of his flagship, Varn's Wrath, watching the burning wreckage drift among the stars. His sharp eyes no longer shone with pride, only disbelief. He had faced rebellions, pirate fleets, and border wars, but he had never seen anything like this. Commander, said his first officer quietly, the Retribution is still holding position near the moon. It has not fired again. Zareth didn't respond. His mind was racing. They could have destroyed all of us, he said finally. But they didn't. The officer frowned. Why spare us? Zareth turned slowly toward the large window where Earth hung below them, blue, calm, and peaceful. Because they don't see us as a threat, he said bitterly. We're an example. Hours passed. The fleet floated in uneasy silence, repairing what little they could. Many of the crew whispered among themselves, stories about the humans, legends from before the council was formed. Some said humans had once been peaceful explorers. Others claimed they vanished from galactic space centuries ago, building something in secret. Zareth wanted to believe they were just stories. But the truth now hung before his eyes, a ship so large and advanced that even his strongest weapons had no effect. Suddenly alarms blared again. Commander, shouted the sensor officer. Multiple contacts, inbound at high velocity. Zareth's eyes widened. More human ships? Yes, sir, they're dropping out of FTL near Mars orbit. The bridge filled with tension as red dots appeared on the display. One by one, dozens of Terran warships uncloaked, dark and angular like moving shadows. Their engines glowed faint red, casting light across the stars. There were no transmission signals, no demands. They moved in total silence, a wall of ships spreading out to encircle the alien fleet. Zareth clenched his jaw. How many? 50 confirmed? No, wait, more emerging behind them. 70, 80. His crew exchanged fearful glances. One officer whispered, they were waiting for us. A voice crackled through the speakers. Come. Control. Terrifyingly human. This is Admiral Reyes of the Terran Defense Command. You ignored our warnings. Leave Sol System now. Zareth straightened his uniform and stepped closer to the comm station. This is Commander Zareth of the Varn Dominion, he said firmly. We came to speak with your leaders. Your attack was unprovoked. Pause. Then the human voice replied, flat and cold. You crossed into restricted space. We warned the galaxy to stay away. You chose not to listen. Zareth felt anger boiling in his chest. You cannot isolate an entire star system. The galaxy will not accept. The voice interrupted him. The galaxy doesn't decide what happens here. We do. The bridge went silent. Zareth's pride screamed for him to fight, but a small part of him, the part that had watched his ships vanish without trace, whispered to stay silent. Then Admiral Reyes spoke again. Leave. Or we demonstrate why your fleet will never leave at all. The communication ended. Commander, said his first officer carefully, perhaps we should withdraw. Zareth stared at him. Withdraw? After losing half our fleet? After being humiliated? He turned sharply toward the stars. No. We will show them that the Dominion does not kneel to threats. He raised his hand. All ships, prepare for battle. The crew hesitated. Some looked terrified. Others obeyed silently, afraid to question him. The fleet powered up weapons and shields. Target the nearest human cruiser, Zareth ordered. Fire on my command. Commander, their shields are active. We don't even know their range. Fire. Dozens of plasma bolts lit the void, streaking toward the nearest Terran ship. The explosions flared, then faded harmlessly. The human ship didn't even move. Direct hits, shouted an officer. But before Zareth could reply, the sensors screamed. Their shields didn't even flicker, whispered another. Then one by one the human ships began to move. Slowly. Deliberately. Their formation shifted, spreading wide around the Varn fleet, enclosing them like a tightening net. Commander, said the first officer, his voice trembling, they're surrounding us. Zareth watched as the Retribution moved forward, the largest ship, black and silent, with no visible weapons. Suddenly the alien fleet systems began to fail. Lights flickered. Engines powered down. Communications died. EMP attack, shouted an engineer. We're losing control. The Retribution opened a single communication channel again. You attacked first. You ignored every warning. This is your last chance to live. Zareth shouted into the mic, desperate now. What do you want from us? The voice answered, calm and cold as before. Nothing. Just your silence. Then, without warning, the human ship fired. A single red beam cut through space, precise, quiet, final. One Varn battleship vanished. Then another. Then another. No fire. No debris. Just gone. Zareth's crew froze, eyes wide with horror. Cease fire. Cease fire, he shouted, slamming his fists on the console. The human ship stopped firing instantly. Do you understand now? Came Admiral Ray's voice. Zareth's voice broke. Yes. Then go. Take what's left of your fleet. Tell them what happens when they ignore Earth. The channel closed. As the battered Varn ships limped away from Earth, Zareth stood alone on the dark bridge, watching the human fleet fade into the black. He realized something then, something far worse than defeat. The humans had the power to destroy them completely. But they didn't. They were sending a message. And across the stars that message would soon spread. Ending hook. Zareth whispered to himself. They spared us, so others could see the price. Behind him, the stars flickered, and deep within the Sol system, more human ships woke from the shadows. The galaxy had laughed at Earth. Now the galaxy would remember them in fear. The stars outside the viewport were silent again. Commander Zareth's fleet, once a proud armada of 40 warships, limped home through the cold dark. Only 11 ships remained. Engines flickered weakly. Hulls were scarred and broken. Zareth stood alone on the bridge of Varn's Wrath, staring into the void. The hum of damaged reactors echoed through the decks like a heartbeat. For 3 days no one had spoken much. The crew avoided eye contact. Even the ship's AI ran in silent mode, as if afraid to break the stillness. Zareth replayed the human message in his mind again and again. You ignored every warning. This is your last chance to live. He had lost half his fleet before realizing the truth. The humans had given mercy. Not because they were weak, but because they didn't need to destroy him to prove their strength. That thought haunted him more than defeat. When the Varn fleet finally reached Velethar, the capital of the Galactic Council, the news spread quickly. Reporters and political leaders filled the docking bay, eager for details. As Zareth stepped off his ship, his armor scorched and his expression grim, the crowd whispered. Where is the rest of his fleet? Did they encounter resistance? Surely the humans didn't fight back? Council guards escorted him to the central chamber. The same hall where only weeks ago the council had laughed at Earth's warning. Now Zareth entered the room in silence. The council members turned toward him, eyes filled with curiosity and disbelief. The speaker, Kalreth, tapped his claw impatiently. Commander Zareth, he said, report your findings. What did you encounter in the Sol system? Zareth stood tall, though exhaustion weighed on him. What I found, he said slowly, was power beyond understanding. Murmurs filled the chamber. Kalreth raised a hand. Be clear, Commander. What exactly happened? Zareth took a deep breath. The humans are not what we believed. Their technology is decades, maybe centuries, ahead of ours. Their ships can cloak entire fleets, erase matter and disable systems with precision. We were not fighting primitives. We were fighting something far more dangerous. Laughter echoed from one corner of the chamber. A reptilian general sneered. Come now, Zareth. You expect us to believe that a minor species from a single planet defeated your entire armada? Zareth glared at him. You think I would destroy my own fleet for pride? They warned us and we ignored them. I saw their ships with my own eyes. I saw them fire a single beam that erased entire battleships. Not destroy, erase. No debris. No energy trail. The council fell silent. Then Kareth spoke again, his tone calm but mocking. Perhaps your instruments failed. Perhaps fear clouded your judgment. You claimed they could have destroyed you, yet they spared you. Why? Zareth's voice hardened. Because they didn't want war. They wanted to be left alone. They let us live to send a message. The council chamber erupted in noise, shouts, disbelief, arguments. One delegate slammed a clawed hand on the table. You bring us tales of invisible ships and impossible weapons. The humans are insignificant. But another voice rose, quieter, trembling. What if he's right? The room fell silent again. Kareth turned toward the screens where Earth's image floated. Even if they are advanced, they cannot stand against the united fleets of the Council. We will show them that defiance carries consequences. Zareth took a step forward. If you do this, you will start a war you cannot win. The speaker's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting we surrender to one world? I'm suggesting you listen, Zareth said, his voice cold and steady. We mocked them once. I won't make that mistake again. Kareth's mandibles twitched in annoyance. You are dismissed, Commander. Return to your dominion. The Council will handle this matter. Zareth turned and left without another word. But as he walked through the grand hallways, his communicator suddenly flickered to life. A transmission, priority code red, spread across every Council frequency. The message was short, simple, and familiar. To all who receive this transmission, do not approach Sol System. This is your only warning. The same words. The same voice. But this time it wasn't just aimed at the Council. It was being broadcast across every major channel in the galaxy. Zareth froze. They're warning everyone, he whispered. He rushed to the observation deck. Outside, dozens of Council ships were scrambling in orbit, reacting to the transmission. Panic spread across the city. Another message followed, not from the humans but from a Council recon fleet near the border. Emergency report. 3 trade convoys vanished near human space. No distress beacons, no wreckage. Just gone. Zareth clenched his fists. They're showing the Council what happens when they don't listen. He stormed back into the chamber, bursting through the doors. You see now, he shouted. They're not bluffing. Kareth stood furious. You are out of line, Commander. Zareth slammed his hand against the table. Out of line? You're blind. They could have destroyed us. Instead, they gave us a choice, stay away or vanish. The Council members exchanged uneasy glances. Fear crept into their expressions. Then another alarm sounded, louder, urgent. Unidentified objects entering Council space, a guard reported. Origin unknown, no transponder signals. The chamber fell silent. Zareth looked up at the holoscreen as dozens of unknown ships appeared on sensors, fast, silent, and heading straight toward Council territory. His voice dropped to a whisper. They told us not to come to them, but they never said they wouldn't come to us. Ending hook. The chamber lights dimmed as the holographic screen flickered. A human insignia appeared for a moment, then vanished. Across the stars, the warning repeated again. You were told to stay away. Zareth's heart sank. He knew what that meant. The humans were done warning. The galaxy's silence was about to end. The Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. The chamber, usually calm, filled with cold diplomacy, now trembled with anger and fear. Delegates shouted over one another, holographic maps of human space spinning above the table. The warning message from Earth had gone viral across the galaxy. Billions had seen it. Do not approach Sol System. This is your only warning. But the Council's pride burned hotter than reason. They couldn't allow one small world to humiliate them before the entire galaxy. Speaker Kareth slammed his claws on the table. This cannot stand. They threaten us with fear and shadow. We are the Council, the rulers of 10,000 worlds. Another delegate hissed. Then what do you propose? They erased 3 convoys without a trace. We send a message, Kareth growled. We crush their planet. Make an example of Earth before others start defying us. The room filled with uneasy murmurs. Even the bravest of them remembered the reports from Zareth. Invisible ships, energy beams that erased matter, fleets vanishing without warning. But pride won again. And so the Council voted. War against Earth. A massive fleet assembled in the dark void near the council capital. More than 5,000 warships, cruisers, carriers, dreadnoughts, and the legendary solar spear, the council's superweapon. The fleet stretched across space like a metal storm. Entire stars dimmed under the shadow of their formation. Commander Zareth stood at the viewing deck of his repaired ship, Varn's Wrath, watching the preparations in silence. He had been invited to witness the council's victory, a political gesture meant to humiliate him. He turned to his aide. "How many ships did they send?" "Over 5,000, sir." Zareth shook his head. "Against a single planet? They still don't understand." The aide hesitated. "You think the humans will fight?" Zareth stared into the stars. "They warned us. If they fight now, the galaxy will never be the same." The fleet departed. It took 3 days for the armada to reach Sol System's borders. Their approach was silent. No human ships appeared. No defenses were detected. Admiral Vorith, commander of the Council Armada, smirked from his flagship. "So this is the mighty human domain? Empty space and one fragile blue planet." He raised his hand. "Begin the scan." Dozens of sensor waves rippled through space, probing every inch of the solar system. The readouts came back normal except for one thing. Every scan ended the same way, static. Then one by one the ship's communications went dead. Vorith frowned. "What is this interference?" "Unknown, Admiral. Systems are failing. Wait, energy spike detected near the asteroid belt." The tactical display flashed red. Massive readings, hundreds of them, were emerging from the void. Vorith narrowed his eyes. "Identify those signatures." The operator's voice shook. "Their ships, sir, but not ours." "Impossible. Nothing was there a moment ago." The operator turned pale. "They just appeared." Space came alive. Dozens of colossal ships decloaked across the fleet's path, sleek, black, and silent. Their hulls bore no markings, but their weapons glowed with cold, white light. Zaretha's voice echoed through the Council command channel from his distant ship. "Those are Terran warships. They don't announce their presence, they don't threaten. They just watch." Admiral Vorith sneered. "Then let them watch their world burn." He gave the order. "Fire all batteries." Thousands of plasma beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds tore through space, aimed straight at Earth. For a heartbeat, the galaxy watched in silence. Then, every weapon froze. Mid-flight. The projectiles, beams, and energy pulses, all halted in space like time itself had stopped. Gasps filled the comms. What happened?" "Our weapons, they've been disabled." "Impossible." "How?" The Terran ships moved. Slowly, deliberately. Their weapons charged. No color, no sound, just a strange distortion of light. Then with one pulse, an entire line of Council ships vanished. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Voritha's voice cracked. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Now." But it was too late. The human fleet moved like a storm, precise, controlled, unstoppable. Every time a Council ship locked onto a target, its systems went dark. Every time one tried to flee, it disappeared from sensors. Within minutes, thousands of ships were gone. The solar spear, the pride of the Council, charged its super beam, but before it could fire, it simply crumbled into dust. The remaining fleet broke formation, retreating in chaos. Zaretha's voice whispered through the static. "They gave you a warning." Hours later, silence returned to the Sol system. Earth hung quietly in the dark, untouched. Not a single missile had reached its surface. Of the 5,000 ships that had come, fewer than 50 survived. They fled into deep space, broadcasting frantic distress calls. Zaretha's ship, still observing from afar, recorded everything. His aide stared at the view. "Sir, are we watching the end of the Council?" Zaretha's eyes were cold. "No. We're watching the beginning of something new." He turned away from the viewport. They didn't just defend Earth. They showed the galaxy what they're capable of, and what happens when they're provoked. A faint signal flickered on his console. Another message, human in origin. Zaretha opened it. "To all civilizations, we do not seek conquest. We seek peace. But if you bring war to our home, we will bring silence to yours." Back at the Galactic Council, panic ruled. Entire sectors had gone dark. Communication relays near human borders were offline. Rumors spread, fleets missing, planets isolated. Kalreth demanded answers, his voice cracking. "Where are our reinforcements? Where are the survivors?" A trembling officer replied, "They're gone, sir. The humans didn't just destroy our ships. They erased our systems. Our entire network is collapsing. For the first time, the speaker's confidence shattered. He whispered, "What have we done?" Zareth arrived moments later, carrying the human transmission. He placed it on the council table. "This," he said quietly, "is your answer. They warned you once. They won't warn again." The chamber fell silent. Outside, the stars flickered, as if something vast and unseen moved among them. Ending hook. Zareth looked up at the night sky, whispering to himself, "You thought they were weak, but you forgot the one truth of the Deathworlders: humans don't start wars." He paused. They finished them. The galaxy had gone quiet. Too quiet. In the weeks after the battle at Sol, no ships entered or left human space. The great fleets of the Galactic Council had vanished. Trade routes stood empty. Worlds that once hummed with light now drifted in darkness. And somewhere in that silence, humanity watched. On the dying world of Velethar, a council relay station buzzed with static. Technicians argued, trying to restart the main network. "No signal from Central Command," one shouted. "Half the star relays are offline," cried another. Suddenly the screens flickered. A symbol appeared, not alien but human. White letters glowed against black. "Transmission restored by Terran Command." Then a calm voice followed. "This is not an invasion. Your systems are now under Terran protection. Do not resist." The station fell silent. Even the air seemed to freeze. One alien whispered, trembling, "They're inside our network." Across the galaxy, the same thing happened again and again. Banks, weapons, ships, factories, every machine connected to the Council's grid suddenly obeyed someone else. The humans never sent fleets. They didn't fire a shot. They simply took control. Whole star sectors shut down overnight. Powerless dreadnoughts drifted in orbit. Planetary governors found their armies frozen, their commands ignored. And then, one by one, the transmissions arrived, the same soft human voice repeating, "We do not wish to rule, but we will stop those who bring war." At the council capital, panic turned to terror. The once grand chamber was a ruin of noise, leaders shouting, alarms blaring, holoscreens flashing with red warnings. Communications offline. Planetary defenses not responding. "Our fleets aren't listening to us." Zareth stood in the center of the chaos, calm and silent. He watched the madness with cold eyes. He had seen this coming. Speaker Kalreth grabbed him by the shoulder, desperate. "You fought them. You survived. Tell us how to stop this." Zareth looked at him, almost with pity. "You can't stop them. You should have listened when they warned us." Kalreth's voice cracked. "We are the Council. We rule the stars." Zareth shook his head. "Not anymore. They do, and they didn't even want to." Then the lights went out. Total darkness filled the chamber. From the shadows, a hologram appeared, the blue, translucent figure of a human officer. No face. No insignia. Just a voice. "Galactic Council. Your weapons are offline. Your fleets are grounded. You no longer pose a threat to this galaxy." Kalreth's voice trembled. "What do you want from us?" The hologram's tone didn't change. "We want peace. But peace requires memory. You must remember this moment, the day your pride ended your rule." The hologram flickered, then projected images of every destroyed fleet, every burning ship, every warning they ignored. Zareth closed his eyes. He had seen it all before, but now the entire council was forced to face it. "The war is over," the voice said softly. "Do not make us remind you again." And just like that, the hologram vanished. The power returned. The galaxy's most powerful government was left speechless, powerless. Weeks passed, and a strange calm spread across the stars. Planets once under council control began declaring independence. Smaller species, long enslaved, suddenly found their systems free. Human interference had cut the chains that bound them. Cargo ships with Terran markings arrived quietly at border stations, bringing food, supplies, medicine. No soldiers. No conquerors. Only help. Zareth, now in exile, watched the broadcast from a lonely asteroid outpost. Every message carried the same quiet human motto: "We remember those who seek peace. We silence those who seek war." He sat in silence, staring at the message. His aide, an old friend, spoke softly. "Do you think they'll ever join the council again?" Zareth shook his head. "There is no council anymore. There is only the balance they created." He looked out the viewport, eyes reflecting the stars. Humans never wanted to rule. They wanted to be left alone. But now, everyone will think twice before challenging them. Far away in the Sol system, the human fleet stood silent above Earth, black ships like shadows against the sun. Inside the flagship, TSS Retribution, Admiral Wren kept his gaze on the tactical display. A young officer approached. "Sir, the galaxy is quiet. No hostiles detected anywhere." Wren nodded. "Good. That's how it should stay." The officer hesitated. "Sir, do we lift the network lock?" Wren thought for a long moment. "No, not yet. Let them rebuild, let them remember. Fear fades quickly. But silence." He paused. "Silence lasts." Months later, an encrypted broadcast echoed across deep space, heard on every world that once ignored Earth's warning. "To all civilizations of the galaxy, humanity will not interfere in your affairs. But remember this: we offered peace before war. We warned before we fought. And now we watch." The message ended with a single phrase, carved into the history of every star system: "Never provoke the Death Worlders." Zareth listened to the broadcast one last time. He stood from his seat, walked to the viewport, and whispered to the stars. "We called them savages, yet they were the only ones who showed mercy." He smiled bitterly. The galaxy ignored Earth's warnings once. No one ever will again.